How's it going? Hope you guys are doing good. So right now, we're at the end of 2022 and there is what seems to be an overwhelming amount of iPad variants out there. Like, there's a lot of iPads. They all have great build quality, solid designs, battery life. Now, they're in different price brackets and targeted for different people, but they are at their core also an iPad. And while the hardware has been there for years, it's still at that point where that spectrum or gap between the highest end and lowest end iPads isn't really that large. I mean, we've been saying this for years, but the newest M2 iPad Pro still feels like that supercar that has a 0 to 60 time in 2.6 seconds, a top speed of 284 miles per hour, but then you go to the dealership, you pick up the keys, and they only let you drive it around a parking lot. So a question that I've seen popping up a lot recently, especially with the holidays, is it even worth looking at the M2 iPad Pro? And that's a really good question, because it seems like every new iPad coming out recently basically feels like the same as the last one. Plus there's a Mini, an Air, Pro, 10th gen, 9th gen, M1, M2. It's like, okay, Alex, I want an iPad, but which one do I get? So as someone who's had the privilege of reviewing these guys each year, spending a lot of hands-on time with these devices, the first thing I'm gonna tell you is take advantage of return periods. This isn't something you need to freak out over choosing the wrong device. Spend some time with it in person, and then you're obviously gonna be able to make a little bit more of a tuned decision, because everyone is gonna have a preference for one device over the other, and there's no better way of knowing what you want than using it in person. Because there's only so much that I can say or any other reviewer can show you that's gonna help you make your decision. So a lot of it's gonna be up to whatever you're looking for specifically. Now in the case of the M2 iPad Pro, since all the other iPads are rocking really good hardware, I feel like this choice or decision between them has only gotten more difficult than it's ever been. So before I even talk about the new iPads, I wanna take a look at a device that is the oldest brother of this design that I still use every day. All right, you remember the 2018 iPad Pro? This came out at a time where the hardware packed in was outrunning the software so hard that it was ridiculous. There was no iPad OS, it was just iOS 12. So if you think the iPads are held back now, back then it was even worse. Now the great thing about iPads in general is overall lifespan. You can go out right now, pick up one of these right out of the box, and you know you're gonna get up to 5 years of updates, and it's not gonna feel super sluggish and horrible like a lot of other tablets are gonna end up feeling. Now going on 4 years now, I've had the 2018 iPad Pro. Put this in the hands of any relatively normal user versus the M2 iPad Pro, and you're not gonna tell the difference. Now of course there are exceptions for the true power users out there, but for the most part, this thing is still a beast. And I feel like it makes way more sense to compare this new iPad Pro against something a couple generations old versus comparing it to the M1. So let's rewind a bit. Let's dust off the metal and glass rectangle and talk about this iPad Pro. In 2018, this kind of positioned itself to basically obliterate every tablet on the market, cemented the iPad Pro as the Jordan in the tablet NBA. And at the time, basically you asked for a tablet recommendation and it was like, buy an iPad and you know you're gonna be good to go. Even with its quirks at launch, like still being this super weird hybrid device that Apple is absolutely holding back to keep that MacBook lineup safe, the power at the time was ridiculously overkill, and that trend is still continuing. But iPadOS has matured over the years with the latest edition of having Stage Manager. This thing is still getting updates, the A12X is still chugging along, and this has a pretty dear place in my heart for being my first iPad. Now fast forward to this year. Apple drops the M2 iPad Pro. No big event, just a press release with, hey, we released new iPads again. So FYI, if you already own an M1 iPad Pro, unless you're a super crazy hardcore digital creator or artist that feel like the couple new features are gonna revolutionize your workflow somehow, I'd probably recommend just skipping this year completely, obviously. Especially considering the international price increases outside of the US, the iPads in Europe are seeing up to 50% price bumps, so it's gonna throw them even further out of contention. All right, now I wanna talk about some of the possible reasons why I can see someone choose the M2 Pro over the older generation iPads. And it's for the couple features that are gonna fit that role perfectly. So people who use Wacom tablets for their digital work might have their interest peaked slightly more, considering the iPad Pro is a device that can serve and does do really well for those digital artists. Now, whether or not we can consider a feature like Pencil Hover to be worth several $100 over just picking up the M1 is gonna be up to the person that's using it. I mean, it's absolutely useful if you work with illustrations a lot and wanna preview your brush or brush size without needing to jump between the palette settings. It's nice. You'll know exactly what and where you're drawing onto the screen, and it seems to be pretty precise. Now, you can take my word from this as a professional stick figure artist, but for the most part, if you put this in the hands of someone that has the skill, they're gonna be able to take advantage of this. But it's gonna be great for people who also edit their photos on the iPad, hovering the pencil over screen elements for previews. It's awesome for those that know they'll enjoy it, but not game-changing for anyone that doesn't use the pencil as their primary input device. So now the other updates include Wi-Fi 6E support, which honestly speaking, I did speed tests between both of them, and day to day, I don't see really any difference. Now, is it nice for future-proofing? Sure. Now, the addition of ProRes video support is also very strange because there's no native support for this, so you'll need to find a third-party app. I don't know who out there is gonna take advantage of this, but I'm sure you know who you are. Okay, performance. The M2 is blazing fast. To no one's surprise, it's gonna be the absolute best gaming tablet out there regarding speed and performance. It's about 15% faster than the M1. And if you use an iPad as your primary photo editing, video editing, or music production device, I don't think you're gonna be upset with the amount of juice you're getting with the M2. Now, does it warrant picking up the M2 over the M1? I don't think so. It's not like the M1 is feeling really sluggish right now. It's quite the opposite. But I feel like the one thing we're seeing, especially recently, is maybe that first wave of pioneering from developers like DaVinci Resolve finally coming to the iPad, which for me personally wasn't really something the iPad Pro could do. I always had to have either a desktop or a laptop around if I wanted to do some video editing. But now with DaVinci Resolve coming to this guy, that's kind of a true pro app. So it makes this a pro device maybe for the first time. I feel like the iPad Pro is like a Pokemon that we've seen evolve slowly over the years. We're so much closer to that final form, but there's still those iPad quirks that make this one of the more difficult purchase decisions in tech. So here's my suggestion. Just because it has the word Pro in it, or now actually on it, doesn't all of a sudden make it the best choice over all the other iPads out there for everyone. If you want the Pro features, like the refresh rate, maybe the little extra juice, added headroom, the M1 might be better suited for you. But I feel like if you're the artist that can take advantage of those features, and you can justify the couple $100 over the M1, maybe the M2 Pro might be worth it for you. And if you want something for more casual usage, like web browsing, watching content, maybe look outside the Pro lineup, or even consider the older refurbished Pro models. The M2 Pro is a premium device. It's Apple's best iPad yet, but at its current price, at least right now, it doesn't do enough to pull me off my personal iPad Pro just yet. So hopefully this helped. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you have any questions down below, and I'll see you guys soon. Happy holidays.